Hey everyone. Uh, Someone's here. Awesome. It's always good when I start a stream and someone joins. Puts a smile on my face. And, you know, I'm working on, I like to talk about heavy topics when they're productive and we can get meaning from them. But, like I try and make things positive. Yeah, so with what I put in the title and also in the description. So I'll talk about how something simple that happened the other day gave me like this beautiful thing in return. So, I've been planting food around in the garden and down at the community garden. And I was watering the plants the other day. And some of them aren't like where I've got most of the plants, they get more attention, they get more water. And the ones that I've planted further away, I've given them enough attention to keep them healthy. But I don't check on them every day because they're in a spot and they're protected. They don't need to be checked every day, and they don't need they're not getting. Part of learning how to grow food is knowing what's too much water, what's the right amount, and they're in different soil, so they're growing slower. But they're protected from the turkeys and the animals. So, but we're in the middle of summer, and it was only yesterday we were at the closest point between the Earth and the Sun. So things should be, even though I'm in the Southern Hemisphere and where things get hotter over time. So where I am, it's usually February, which is the last month of summer, is actually the hottest, not the middle of summer. And there's several reasons for that. Often we get cloudy and rain, cloudy days and rain makes it cool. We often have cool times in the middle of summer here. But then things are slowly heating up, and they've been heating up ever since, halfway through spring. So it gets warmer and warmer, and even though we get the cooler time often, we don't always get it, but we often get it. We get the hotter time, even though we're moving away from the sun again, it takes time for that effect to really happen because things have been warming up, and so it takes longer to cool down. And it's a beautiful change when we do go into autumn, or you call in a lot of places they call it fall. But it's it basically, I've got time now to know that some of the worst of the heat has happened, so that now, you know, I can really focus on the next few weeks, that it being, I need to be careful to make sure that everything's getting enough water at the right time of day. And I'm learning all about this and how to actually grow plants and have them sheltered by other plants through the heat of the day. That's a big thing, is that it does, I'm in a subtropical environment, so that things get really hot, and it can be disastrous for some plants. So what I do is, I'm learning about how to use other plants to grow together so that they can both all benefit. And so this is something really lovely that happened the other day, is when I was, this happened a few days before. I was down at the community garden, and I was whistling. There was a butcherbird, and I can't tell if this is magpie or butcherbird. I think it's butcherbird. No, it's got to be magpie because it's too big. But I was whistling to a butcherbird, and it was singing, and I was singing back, and it was loving, knowing that I could sing its, I could speak its language. And then when I was walking back, I saw this on the ground. But the story that I'm wanting to talk about is, I was growing food at home all around, and I'm learning what grows where. And this is through the hottest time of year, so I'm learning what plants are able to deal with the heat, and then what sort of shade and water combinations I can have to make it work, you know. And while I've been working on getting all the gardens that my mother put in, and she put a lot of time and effort into building these gardens ever since I was a child. The gardens were already there, but she kept building them. So I've been a part of that since I was a child. And then, you know, I took over maintaining them for a long time. And then after she passed, like, it's coming up to a year tomorrow, actually. And, you know, I went through difficult times, and then while I was carer, like, I didn't have the energy to do much to work on the gardens, and so they got overgrown. And, you know, I've been just bit by bit bringing them back to the way where they were, and that's been awesome. I hope the stream's working. People keep joining and dropping out, but hopefully that's not to do with anything. So I've gotten the gardens back to the way she had it. You know, she'd be happy with the way I've trimmed everything and cleared the paths and mulching it. And, you know, she always had a few bird baths, and So one of them that's down in the bottom garden, birds love it. And they come and when you put fresh water in the bird bath, they love it, you know. And that's the photo that I had on the thumbnail for the video, is the bird bath. Well, not the bird bath, a feather. So I've, whenever I'm doing hosing in that area, I empty out the bird bath and I, clean it out, and then I put fresh water in it. And whenever I do that, I notice the birds come back, in the next few days, and they really appreciate it. And especially through the hot time of year. And so this last time I did that, it was really lovely. I emptied out the bird bath, I filled it up with water. But then when I went back through and did another watering, I looked at the ground, and there was a feather from a bird, and I was like, oh, this is awesome, because the birds, they can see the water from up high, and they know that's fresh water. They can see by the way the water shimmers, and so they come down and have a bath and have a drink. And this bird, in doing that, it left a feather. And for me, it was like a message from the bird to me to say thank you, even though it's not like the bird did it intentionally, it just fell out while it was cleaning. But it was still, for me, a reminder. And I felt blessed by that. I just was like, this is beautiful. And then I picked it up, and that was the thumbnail photo for this video is that. So what it reminded me is that while I was watering my own garden, looking after the plants that I planted for my own self-interest, because I'm growing these plants in amongst a garden that doesn't have food. I'm putting in a few food plants in this particular spot, and so it's for me, right? And so by looking after my plants, it means that I'm there doing something and checking on the rest of the garden and bringing it to a nice spot. And while I'm there, I'm clearing out the bird bath and making fresh water for the birds and putting fresh water in there and cleaning it. So it's very easy to do a little bit more. So I'm doing something for myself, but while I'm doing that, I'm also doing something for the garden and also something for the birds by doing the bird bath. And those things can happen very easily because I'm putting in that little bit of effort on top of my own effort for my own self-interest. And for me, it seems that it's better to have that as a part of my own thing where I'm working on something for myself, that while I'm there, to do a bit more for everything else around, because I'm already there. I've already, like I'm watering the whole garden. I'm not just watering my plants, I'm watering the whole garden. And then the bird bath is the animals, So, and I'm creating habitat for all the other animals that live there. And so getting that feather was a beautiful thing, to get that given back to me, to remind me of thank you. It's like saying thank you. And it's just, for me, it's like, oh, well, a bird has been here, and it's had a bath in this fresh water. And it was not much for me to actually do that, and in fact, it was automatic. It was like, I'm there. It's part of the whole thing. And it just makes me think that that is a natural thing, that it helps. It's not like justifying something. It's just something you do, something I do, something anyone would just do. It's like picking up a bit of rubbish off the ground when you're going for a walk on a beautiful walking trail. It doesn't take much to do. It helps if you've got a bag or a backpack or something you can put the rubbish in, or like, depend, like, if you're walking along a trail and you see like a big pile of rubbish, and you go, well, I can't pick all that up right now, but you can contact the authorities and say, look, oh, there's a pile of rubbish there, and then they'll log it, and they'll go clean it up. Or maybe you can go back next time with a backpack and a garbage bag and some gloves. You can pick up all that rubbish and put it, and just do those things without even expecting anyone to know about it. You're just doing your bit. And that's just as much as doing that little bit extra while you're in a position for it to there's not to just justify it. It's just to do it. And it's just automatic. It's like, well, I'm here. While I'm watering the garden, I'll water all the plants as well as the ones that I planted. But I'll do the water. I'll plant the bird bath as well. I'll clean and wash the bird bath. And those things are. I think that's a really good thing, that and often, if you offer help to someone and they don't, like, if someone's in like a position where someone else could help them out, and you just happen to be there, and you're like, hey, do you need a hand with that, or can I help with that? Or you don't even, like, it could be someone's dropped something and you go and pick it up for them because you notice it's slipped out of their hands or something like that. And people are very appreciative of that. And or even just often, if someone's flustered, a lot of people have got anxiety or they've had a bad day, and if just acknowledging them and having a friendly conversation, it can be overwhelming in a good way. Like, they can be very appreciative. And I know I've been on the receiving end of that, and where people have spoken to me in a helpful, caring way. They've noticed my position, and then they've gone, hey, they've been friendly. And I've been overwhelmed by it. And I know when I do it, it's not like I don't even think about it. It's like, oh, look, there's someone. We're all people. We're all, we're spirits. We're intellects. We've got hearts and souls. We care, and we're in this, like, it's so easy to be isolated and separate, and it's like there's so much going on in people's lives, and so offering something it can be such a special thing for people, and you see that. And it's a beautiful thing to be there, just to be there and happen to be there, and to notice and to care and to just offer something that it's a beautiful thing. And it, you know, it doesn't have to be, it's not about like, I'm doing this because I want to do something good. That's not why. It's just you're there and you see the opportunity to help someone. There's no sort of forcing things or, I mean, it's very, if someone's, it's very easy for people to be difficult. It's very easy for people to find it hard to accept people helping. And I know that from myself. Sometimes people have offered help and I've been shocked by that because I'm so used to being on my own with things, even though I do get a lot of help and support from people around. But and so sometimes it can be, oh, but it's not even a thing. If you like just offering some help only because it's easy and you're there and you care about helping someone. If they say no, oh no, that's fine, I'm all right, and then that's fine too, you know, like there's no pressure, you know. Like when I don't like going shopping in busy times and all that, and it just happened to be that I went in shopping a couple of days before Christmas this year, and I was helping someone get some shopping done. And when we were walking back, there was a woman with a shopping cart, and she was limping, really having trouble with her stuff. And I was like, oh, are you okay? Can I help with anything? And she's like, oh, no, it's fine. And I realized that, you know, with people with joint or like, you know, back or walking issues, like having the shopping trolley can be their thing that helps them, you know. But she was really struggling, and she goes, oh no, look, she goes, oh, I forgot my walking stick, and you know, I left it in the car. And you know, she said she had something like she called her husband and about it, and then she was like, oh no, she'll just keep going. And I was like, I said, well, oh, that's no good. But like, do you have far to go? And she's like, yeah, it's not that far. But she was in a lot of difficulty. And I said, oh, can I help with carrying anything? And she goes, no, that's fine. I was like, oh, no worries. She was determined to just do her thing, and she appreciated me offering. And as soon as she said no, she was fine. I was like, oh, that's fine, because I was like, yeah, that's. And then we just wished her a happy New Year's and a happy Merry Christmas and all that. And it was just that connection. You know, like people just simple acts of kindness can be really powerful. And that's an example of like offering help and someone being, well, no, I'm fine, you know, but even though they're struggling, they are strong and they push through this stuff, you know. She clearly had a debilitating or a serious mobility constraint that she lives with, you know, and it's not this, you know, she explained to by us talking about it, she talked about how she didn't bring her walking stick, but then now she regrets not having the walking stick. So, but then she was pushing like this trolley with so much stuff in it, and that's what I was like offering, like, can I carry some of the bags, you know? And then, but then as soon as she said no, I was like, yeah, no worries, that's cool. And I just wished her well, and it was it was not like there was no, it wasn't uncomfortable, and it was nice to just speak to someone, and it reminds me that everyone's so busy with things, and that reminds me of like another time, and this was years ago. This was 10 years ago, actually. No, longer than that, 12 years ago. And I was driving home from work, and it was a busy road. It's like one of those 2-lane roads going out of the city. And it was at this point where the 2 lanes merge into one before they go back onto another main road. And there was a car with a trailer that had jet skis, wave runners jet skis on the back. Had 2 of them on the back of this trailer, and the trailer had fallen off the car, and the lights had changed probably several times. No one had stopped, and that I didn't know that. But then when I spoke to her, she said, "Oh, like I pulled up, and it was a young woman, and she's like, oh, thank you so much for stopping. Like, no one's stopped for ages. Like, I've been stuck here." And I'm like, oh, I was like, oh, so lucky that you know that there's no damage, because the chains kept the trailer from, like, you know, so the chains were on it, but the trailer had popped off, and it was heavy, and it was on a hill, so she didn't have the strength to like lift it up, but the 2 of us, we were able to like lift it up and pull it up and get it back on. And she was just like, she goes, she said, I've been up since like 5 or 6 this morning. I can't remember the time. This is years ago now. But she's like, I've been up since early, taking sick people with cancer out, jets on the jet wave runners all day. And she was driving home, and this was late at night. It was getting dark. And she goes, oh, after today, like, she was just so appreciative that I just stopped to help. And I was like, you know, like, I was like, oh, I'm glad I was able to stop and be here, you know. And she was angry at how no one else would stop. Like, and well, she wasn't angry. She was upset. She was like, I can't believe no one stopped. And I'm so glad you stopped. Like, she goes, I was here for ages, and people could clearly, people could clearly see that someone needed to help her because it was so heavy. It was on a hill. And none of those people knew that she'd just been volunteering her whole day to take people out to have a nice day that are living with something. And she was just so appreciative. She was like, thank you so much, you know, like, I was like, and for me, it was just like, it was no problem. Like, I just saw someone who just needed, someone is in difficulty, you just do what you can. If you're there, doesn't take much, you know. And so, but I was sort of a little bit shocked, and I realized that, you know what, and the way she was talking about how she couldn't believe that no one was stopping, and they could clearly see she was, people could clearly see she was in distress and she needed help, and no one was doing anything. They just kept driving past. They wanted to get home. They didn't want to stop and help. It took like, I was back in my car driving off in less than 5 minutes. It only took a few minutes because it was, you know, it was getting late. She had to drop the jet skis back and all this stuff, or the wave runners, whatever they were. Yeah, just reminds me, just little things. And I appreciate so much when someone does that for me. They see that, you know, well, it doesn't take much and it helps. I think that's why it's upsetting when people don't do anything, because they realize those people don't care like they should. But I think it's just, you know, it's not easy for instance, when I've had severe anxiety and I've been out in public, I would find interacting with other people very difficult, and it's getting better these days. So, but you know, even with the mild middle level anxiety, those would be opportunities for me to actually communicate and, you know, connect with other people. And it would break me out of that insular sort of world that anxiety and trauma sort of brings. So, you know, like, how is everyone? I hope everyone's doing all right. Harmony's here. Awesome. Harmony Seeker says hi. How you going, Harmony? I watched some of your soprano video the other day, and also the one where you talk about the neuroplasticity for music. I love that stuff, and I want to get back into making music and stuff myself. It's such a healing thing. So, I'm just really grateful for opportunities I have in the world. You know, like, since I started doing the live streams, it's been such a healing thing, and to connect with everyone. And we've had some really powerful conversations together. And I've also got to speak about my own stuff, and that's been really healing and powerful. And you know, people keep reminding me of how much I've progressed and healed, and, you know, It's awesome. So I'm glad I can. I'm glad I did it, you know, because it's helped me to get to this point, and I'm excited for the future. It's really, really good. This year's going to be amazing. Amazing things are going on. I'm traveling to the other side of the world. I'm going to become a father. All these things are just amazing. So, you know, and putting in that effort with doing the permaculture course and you know, really, it's that effort pays off in time. Like I had just learning, just so much learning, and then just today, like I planted a whole bunch of seedlings of habanero chilies and habanero and cayenne peppers, which are they're like chilies, but they're not actually in the same. They're actually hot. They have a different. So if you know cayenne pepper, and it's different to chilies, but they look like chilies, and the plant looks like chilies. They're just and these are seedlings that I had sitting in pots for ages, and now that I've put them in the ground, that they'll be. And we had a bay tree that Mum had in a pot, and the pot had broken, and I was like, well, I've got to plant that in the ground. And we had a lime tree that had died, and so because it kept getting eaten by insects, like they kept eating the leaves, and so eventually stink bugs they used to. And so I've been looking at the lime tree going, I've got to dig that out at some point. And I'm like, oh, well, I'll put the bay tree where the lime tree was. And so I've got that in the ground, dug out the lime tree. And while I was doing that, I planted so much stuff this afternoon. And then I was looking around just at everything, and I'm like, it's so good seeing all this stuff growing. Even I've got all these papaya pawpaw trees that are just seedlings that have just popped up because I'm making liquid fertilizer from the food scraps from the kitchen and the fruit scraps, because my dad loves to have lots of fruit every day. And so I planted a lot. Oh, well, I didn't plant. When I separate the liquid, there's the leftover fruit, which I just mush up and put that in the mulch, and the worms love it because it's already broken down. It's like worms don't like eating fruit and vegetables. You know, like that's why people actually put too much fruit and vegetables in worm farms. If they set up a worm farm, it's not good for them. It's not natural. They like to eat leaves and things. And the occasional bit of fruit that's already fermented and broken down, that's when they like to eat it. And so I've been told that if you do have a worm farm, you can put those foods wrap them up in paper, and so that the worms it's not too much for them. It's not nice. So, but by making the liquid fertilizer, when I take out the fermented fruit, it's perfect for worms to eat. They can eat it straight away. And I'm getting good results now. putting it in the big compost bins I've got, which I put the leaf litter in that the worms are already in amongst. And then, so every so often there'll be layers where I just put all the fruit and it's all fermented. And so they can come and find it and eat it, but they're not forced to eat it. So people think that they're doing good by like having this worm farm and putting all this fruit and vegetables in, but it's actually really like toxic to the worms, because they're being forced to eat food, too much, rich food that hasn't been prepared. So I'm learning how, like, it's all about like creating the natural environment for these, and the worms are back, and even though it's the middle of summer and we haven't had that much rain, I'm finding the worms are back everywhere, and I'm learning how to do it all without too much effort. But that's what I was saying. I've got pawpaws popping up everywhere, and while I was planting this bay tree, I'm looking on the ground. I'm like, they're all over. So, which is awesome because my dad loves pawpaws. So it means we're going to have pawpaw trees in whole sections, and pawpaw trees can last for years. They can grow massive, and you can get lots of them. So that's awesome. And again, the seeds from the pawpaw trees they're really good. They've been fermented in the water, making the liquid fertilizer. So when they get put on the ground and leaf litter put on top, they strike really well because it's like a natural thing for them. Think of a pawpaw fruit falling off a tree and it rots and ferments naturally, and then the seeds grow. So like, I'm learning how to replicate how things happen in nature, and I'm discovering that you get this really good success rate from it. So I'm really excited that I'm learning how to open up sections of the garden naturally. So where these pawpaws are in a perfect spot, And it is really exciting getting results, starting to see things growing, and also it being the middle of summer, so it's very difficult. Like in subtropical environment, a lot of things don't grow in summer. It's too hot, they rot, and so I'm learning there's only certain things that you want to plant to be, especially, but then if you've got perennials, they will be fine if they're sheltered and protected through that hottest time. So it's knowing what's going to grow where in those conditions. And yeah, I made a lot of mistakes with things this year in this learning process. I planted a whole bunch of I made those teepees, like the tripod out of stalks, out of these bamboo stalks, and I planted all these beans, and then birds came and ate them all, or whatever it was, possums or rats. It was something that came and just, and then I'm like, well, of course, I didn't have the covering when I planted them. So I've learned that. And I've also learned to not try and transplant beans, only put them in the ground and let them grow naturally in their spot. And I'm getting success now from that. And it's amazing. The more I learn, the more confidence I'm getting, and with it's just really good having these plants that I'm responsible for. That I'm doing it in a permaculture way, so I'm setting it up so that the garden looks after itself as well. One of the main keys with permaculture gardening is you take care of the soil, you look after the soil and make sure it's got all the right nutrients, it's getting that, and other things. You still pay attention to things like too much light, not enough light, too much water, not enough water. But if you've got the right soil and you've got the right mulch, then the water's going to stay in the soil. You don't have to water it all the time, and sometimes you don't have to water it at all. The rainfall will be enough. And so, I love getting lessons from nature and also learning from other people, talking about those examples of people being there, either being there for other people or other people being there for me, It's just what you do. And it's difficult. It can be triggering, sometimes people, it can be like, certainly when my anxiety was really extreme, I would find it just very difficult being in public. And what helped me get over that was having social interactions with people that were simple, and they were strangers. We're like, say we're both in a shopping center, and there's something to talk about, and it's simple, and we can have a chat and then both go about the rest. We can both move on, and it's each time it would get a little bit easier and easier for me. And so that starts with, the person at the checkout, because you can go shopping and not interact with anyone. But then when you at the checkout, then that, that can help make that connection and break out of being isolated. And then other times it could be while you're shopping, it could be another shopper that you'll chat with. And it only happens when there's something to talk about. Like, you don't just walk up to a stranger and just start talking about things, But if the chance arises, then it helps so much, because it often reassures that, you know, generally people are friendly, you know, and this sort of, and that's where I can sort of go on to what I put in the description of the video is, and this is for especially for people who've experienced emotional abuse or narcissistic abuse, bullying, being put down, you know, that difficult things. And I've become stronger the more I disregard what someone says. If they're using words to attack me, it's violent language, right? Now, and people that use attacks through words, they are physical attacks, especially if they're done in a certain way. They are physical attacks, because usually what happens is the words actually have just as much damage to your body as someone physically attacking you. Now, what happens is often people will call on words being used to attack them where they don't have that same effect. People are saying something that they don't like, right? They're not direct attacks that go straight to the nervous system, and that they don't affect the mind and then the body and then create stress throughout the body, which has massive carry-on effects throughout the whole body. And then you have carry-on effects that are social, psychosocial, and personal, and then interpersonal by affecting your ability to then interact with others, right? So when someone, and this is why it's like this big interconnected thing. So when someone has suffered a lot of emotional abuse, narcissistic and targeted abuse, bullying, people ganging up, and like, and also if there's low level and then there's higher levels versions. So people who are very calculating, you know, they've studied or been trained in how to attack people using words. They literally can cause a lot of damage. And how do you counteract that? Especially, and this is the thing, when you've suffered emotional abuse or narcissistic abuse or personal attacks, persistent, ongoing, what happens is you dissociate, or your nervous system goes out, dysregulates, and you can lose time, you can lose motivation, you can lose momentum, you can lose trust. It can then affect you opening up and feeling safe around others, because it can be just social interaction can be triggering, because there is the fear of the pain that has been inflicted, there is the fear that it will be continued. you know. And in this case, good people that have no bad intentions miss out on that interaction of time, and we miss out on being able to interact with others because of that fear. And so building up a strength and resilience against those attacks is a very powerful thing. And it's difficult to actually stop it, because often when these attacks occur, we dissociate, we go into our trigger response, which is either fight, flight, or freeze, or fawn, and or flop. And so it then reinforces our fear, you know. So when someone delivers an attack, it's better to just acknowledge it, but don't let it do its desired effect. Just acknowledge it, acknowledge what they're doing. But and what I do is I say to myself, I say, well, I'm not going to let this person's words do their desired effect. And this is where it goes back to that old childhood saying, sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. And I always said, that's false, you know. I was like, this is not right, because, you know, just growing up and almost my whole life, you know, being the sort of person I am, people think that they can just like make fun of me or humiliate or attack, all of these things, because they know that it does affect, right? And this is the thing, they know, when bullies know that they're hurting you, whether it's physical or emotional through words. And like I said before, verbal abuse is physical abuse because it has a physical effect. This is my opinion. And it is backed up with science. Like all the people who study the effect on the nervous system and the how people's words are literally spells that are being cast by people who are bad people. If they do it intentionally, then they are physically hurting you through words. And so you can turn that around, you can stop it by acknowledging it. And I always thought that saying, oh, sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. I was like, that's not true, because words hurt me so much. You know, I think about things like going through self-harm, you know, substance abuse. All of these things stem from words that other people had said, not just like from trauma that were experiences. They were also compounded by that. And this is where victimization for people who are either the scapegoat or they're being victimized because they might have suffered something very horrible, and then people want to keep them quiet. So they will basically entrain them into shutting up by keeping them down, suppressing them by using words to shut them down. And so when people do that too, when people tell you, oh, you're no good, that'll never happen, you'll never make it, that's when you go, well, no, I'm not going to listen to them. I'm not going to let their words hurt me. And that's why I think it's taken me a long time to actually realize that saying that sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me, is like a protection spell to say, no, your words will never hurt me, you know, because the attacks will be dispelled it's like saying no. It's like, you know, think of Gandalf stamping his staff down saying, "You shall not pass," to the Balrog. Now, my brain's not working. Can't even think of the place. The Mines of Moria. So it works. I'm telling you, it works. Now, what happens is when and this is why, this is in like the description why I said we can't let people take away our light, you know, because essentially that's essentially what people are trying to do. We can't let people stop us from being. We have to. We can stop this. We can stop if someone goes to attack. They say something, and that now it takes a long time. It took me a long time to actually dispel it, because what would happen is I would dissociate and I would be instantly hurt, and they call it an amygdala attack. All this sort, there's also sorts of terminology depending on the type of thing that's being done, and it's often done subtly. Now, very conniving people they'll talk about things in a roundabout way, and they'll deliver the attack in a way that gets you off guard. So that's difficult to actually counteract. But the more that you can practice it, the more that you focus on wanting to overcome that. Now, I think the best way is to just ignore, but it still hurts. So what? Acknowledge, but do not allow it to take effect. It's almost instantaneous. Now, it really, without breaking down into different types of verbal abuse or violent language, and in reading, the book Nonviolent Communication books, Rosenberg talks about examples of how, so many different examples of how to actually counteract these situations. And by using nonviolent communication, you can state that what you don't agree with what they're saying, but see, you don't often get a chance to. Here's the thing, with violent communication, it is often delivered from a distance. It's a range weapon, right? People can speak from a distance. They can yell, they can shout. There's so many ways they can do it. Now, people deliver this in a way that they're waiting for you to react too. So if you react, if you get angry, or you react, they're waiting for you to react so they can say, oh, look, this person, you know, is causing a problem. And so they're setting you up. They're baiting you to do this, to react. So the best thing is to not fight, to not react. And sometimes you are in a position to actually stand your ground and protect yourself. And you can respond back by disagreeing with what they say. So going back to that saying is, because I grew up and I was always like, I kept thinking that it was a spell itself saying, you know, sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. I was like, but that's not true. And I was like, but that's letting the bullies get away with it. Because it's like saying, oh, they'll never hurt you. But then I'm like, it's not true. I was like, words hurt just as much. And they can cause just as much damage to, you know, especially if they're calculated and they're delivered in a way. And this is why I think people who have trained in like the old methods, people trained in the Trivium method and they learned how to do this stuff, like speak and like deal with criticism, deal with like people attacking them verbally. What's an argument? We've lost the ability to actually stand our ground and talk about a subject. So, but it's never too late for us to learn these things, you know? I guess not letting people's words cause damage, you know, not letting it hurt, not letting it have that desired effect. We've got to focus on how we can accept people are misguided. Some people, the people that often resort to these sorts of things are going through their own, you know, complex problems. So being able to empathize but not allow helps. But for me, it took a long time to be able to actually stop when someone was being violent towards me, using communication, using words, spoken words. It took me a long time to actually be able to get the strength and courage to like not let it affect me. And this is difficult because words go straight in through the subconscious and the nervous system. They affect everything. They affect your prefrontal cortex or your thinking, you know, and this is why this is a thing, narcissists and psychopaths, they read your body language and they get off on seeing you in pain. It took me a long time to realize that these attacks that when I was receiving this, I was going through the dissociation and the pain, and I was seeing them going through the glee of putting me in that state. And that itself was a traumatizing thing. And so there's ways to get around that. We can learn to become stronger in standing up for ourselves if we have that opportunity. If it's a verbal attack that's coming from a distance, ignore it and just understand that it's not. Don't let it hurt. You know, words will never hurt me. Well, that doesn't always make sense, because even when you're strong at resisting, it still can have that effect because it's so fast. But if I compare where I was in the past, where I would dissociate and then I would lose days or weeks even being in this state of like, I can't believe that they said those things. And then I would go through, because I was entrained by being continually put through these attacks over years and years, I would go through the same nervous system shutdown when it would happen, and it would. But you can overcome this. You can beat it, and you beat it through acceptance, awareness, and then acceptance, compassion, and kindness. Not just, you don't have to, the kindness, you need to show kindness for yourself. All of these things you need to also reflect back on. It's very difficult, but it's achievable. I started off talking about showing kindness and compassion without any, just because it's something you do. You shouldn't have to, it doesn't need to be justified. It's just human nature is compassion and kindness. It's the negative aspects, misanthropy. Now, misanthropy has two sides. There is narcissism and psychopathy, and then there is the want to be away from social structures. So that needs to be differentiated. It's often misinterpreted as both being one thing, and so people are confused by it. These are words. Words exist, and we explain what they mean. And a big trick with words is people misunderstand the meaning of words. But words change their meanings over time. They are contextual. They are locational. They also have a time element. Words that meant something in the past change over time. So we learn the true meaning of words over time through experience, but we have to state what they mean. Otherwise, there's a dictionary. A dictionary will explain, but then there's other explanations for words. So it's not as simple as saying, oh, well, that doesn't mean that, that means this. Well, it's like, well, no, that can mean that, but in this situation, that can mean this. And, you know, narcissism is another example, is that philosophers have debated about what the word means, and poets and playwrights, and, you know, it's still going on. What does it mean? And then psychologists, they are talking about what it means. And yes, there's two sides to narcissism, you know, and it's, as far as the agreed upon definitions that are changing over time, they don't mean what the original meanings of the word was. And they apply traits to create a list so that they can go, okay, that is that. And so, but what we can agree on is that there is the difference between, you know, self-grandizing narcissism, and then there's narcissistic abuse, which is closer to psychopathy, which is using, you know, techniques that nasty people use to prey on others. So you can have a self-indulgent, self-loathing, self-indulgent, self-aggrandizing individual that doesn't care about other people's feelings but doesn't hurt them. They can be a narcissist, but if someone's a narcissistic abuser, so it's a complicated thing, and it's still being discussed today by me, but also by like actual psychologists and philosophers are actively talking about, and psychologists are writing they're updating their terms, you know, of what they think something is, and all this stuff changes all the time. But we contribute to that, we contribute to the meaning of these things by discovering negative aspects, right? And being aware, and that protects us, right? Because we've suffered abuse, we've suffered whatever it is. It could be you know, it happens in so many forms. And then we look at the positive. What are the positive aspects to humans, and how we care for each other, and how we can interact, and we can support each other. And then we can apply those understandings of the good and the bad, or the positive and negative, to find balance in the middle, so that we can then ourselves grow and prosper. Because the more that we can do that, the more we have to offer to give to others, and the more we're able to be aware of negative things that are being applied to us, and how we can deflect, absorb, or counteract, you know. And it doesn't have to be, you know, essentially things work out to be simple. Simple is a beautiful thing. Simplicity, things that are simple, everything is simple in the universe. If the universe didn't have simplicity, we could not have complexity. And that's the beauty of things. you know. Think of these equations, or, you know, the Fibonacci, or, you know, fractal equations. Think of sayings that are really profound. The most simple sayings are the most profound, because they, you know, I think of that all the time. Well, someone else is here. I missed the chat. Awesome. It's difficult for me to pronounce. I'll just say it's LS. Ciel. Lysel. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong, but yes, says hello from Norway. Awesome. Hello to you. I'm glad you're here, you know. And that's awesome. I have ancestors from Norway. That's so cool. I'd love to go there one day. It's been really good chatting tonight. I've noticed there's been a lot of people in the stream, and then people dropping out at times. And I hope it's not to do with my connection. I understand. Sometimes I talk about stuff that's also, you know, I'm trying to work towards talking positive as much as possible. Oh, that's beautiful. It says it's light soul in Norwegian. There you go. I'm going to learn how to pronounce it too. When I'll look it up on. Isn't that beautiful, light soul? That's a really cool name. That's really cool. That is really cool. I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad we're having a chat. And I've sort of finished talking about what I was wanting to talk about. I guess a big thing is like I'm trying to say with what I was trying to talk about tonight is don't let people take from you if especially if people have their intention to take from you by using their words to cause pain. There's ways to not let that happen, but to still show compassion towards them, but to not allow it. Lysil, I think that's, yeah, Lysil says thank you. That's awesome. Yeah. That's really cool, like that you joined and that's your name. And that's sort of like what I'm talking about tonight is like, you know, there is this thing where, you know, we want to share light with others so that they're not in the darkness anymore, you know. And so by that, it's showing compassion towards even people that are trying to hurt us, understanding that they may be misguided, and they maybe hurt themselves, and that they don't understand why they're doing it. Maybe they're put up to it, you know. In society, there is an allowance for this that goes on, and that's why when you can see the light souls. Yes, exactly. Harmony Light Soul says Harmony Seeker is another great name. Hi to you as well. There you go. Isn't it? Harmony Seeker is a beautiful name. It's so good. And she is amazing. She's such a beautiful, positive person. I'm very grateful to have got to know her, and she gives me a lot of courage and hope. And so I'm glad to have met you too now, Light Soul. And isn't that beautiful? I'll pass that on to her if she doesn't, she's not still in the stream. I'll say, hey, someone said how lovely Harmony Seeker is. And, you know, I think it is the more open and friendly and happy we are, the more that we become then a target for people to try and take our light, to try and diminish us, to try and make us not achieve the good things that we're wanting to do, whether it's for ourselves or for others. And that's sad that is what goes on, but it is what goes on. And we acknowledge this is the world, but it doesn't stop us from being happy. It doesn't stop us from being able to smile and feel and appreciate nature, and also to appreciate other humans and humanity. Humanity is a beautiful thing. People spend so much time caring for each other. And because there's so much negativity going on in the world, we forget, you know, I forget. And I get down on the world. I get sad. But then I still have this hope that it is that, you know, that negative or corrupting things can wield power. They can affect change, but only within what they have the ability to, by being positive, having hope, and caring for ourselves and for others, and showing compassion towards this negative side. You know, it's said often that, you know, fear is lonely, and that you know, if you want to look at it as far as good and evil, those that do evil, they're sad and lonely, and they are hurting themselves just as much as they're hurting others. And that, you know, there are things that are unexcusable in the world, and you know, there needs to be, obviously, you know, forms of punishment need to exist we can't just let people get away with things. You know, there was a philosopher, he was actually a lawyer, And I saw him talking about this recently. I was 6 months ago or whatever, and you know, he just couldn't see forms of punishment to actually do anything. And this is a really complex thing. And so think of it I think of it in a way of, if someone's attacking me verbally, how do I don't want to punish them for what they're doing. I don't need to try to understand it or understand them. But what I can do is not let their words hurt me, like that was in that saying, I think in those situations, and I think that's, but then, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it actually has a counteracting compound effect where that punishment, even like, so for instance, I'll use an example. Someone could like say something to me directly that really hurts me. They really use some psychological tricks and word magic, and they really target it, and they really get to me. I could turn that around and I could like use words to hurt them back, and it could punish them for the fact that they were hurting me. But is that actually going to stop them from doing it? Is it going to stop them from doing it to someone else? And this is a question I'm not sure of. And that's why when this philosopher lawyer spoke about this stuff, he was a humanitarian lawyer that dealt with very serious cases, both on prosecution and defense. So he's seen a lot. And so that's why I listened to this person. I was like, well, this is like when often with things like, we're all like, all of us that think we're all philosophers, all of us that question the world and try and resolve things and then think about things, I think so we can, where especially you have those that have an open mind to listen to arguments, and then you have those that don't want to listen to any argument except for their own ideology, and then you have others that are so far into a particular belief that they're not able to listen to other things. It's not like they don't want to. It's just like they're stuck in this thing. And I think that I think we're all like, just as I got my I've graduated from the School of Life with my honours in philosophy of intuitive philosophy, and you can too. We just have to look and think and see and feel and question and ponder, That's why I never really read the heavy books. I wanted to experience life and understand things, learn a little bit about what the things these people are talking about. But I don't want to spend, if I go down that path I'm going to focus all my time with other people's arguments. Whereas I find that what's more important is to see what the world actually is. And the more that people go down particular, create arguments to try and solve or resolve things, all they're doing is closing themselves off. And often they might have actually been predisposed to that because they never got to live life. So they never got to see what life is like. And so that debases their whole argument, because they're coming from a manufactured or contrived position of limited understanding. And this is where it brings it back to us as humans. We are the people that can experience life, and if we focus, if we observe, nature shows us, and human nature shows us. And, things change, but things remain the same. Things progress, and this is why there are universal truths and universal understandings that seem to have all been resolved in ancient times across all cultures and religions, and this seems to be something that can be seen as what is, but then that doesn't matter so much when we also live in this world where if we're not responding to our environment, whether it's nature or the people around us or our own interaction with it, then that's really where we are. We got to realize we're in the center. Like Tol says, I need to leave you now. Real life, lol. Have a lovely day. It was the image of the feather that made me see your video. With love from Norway to you. Awesome. That's beautiful. See? And that I talk about the feather at the start of the video. So maybe you can go back and watch it. But basically I cleaned out the bird bath at home, and then I was graced with a beautiful feather from one of the birds that came and had a drink and cleaned in the water. And that's where I sort of used that as a thing about being graced with something beautiful. The bird just left its feather for me, but I saw it as a note. I saw it as a message from the bird to say, but the bird just lost its feather while it was having a bath. And I added representation to that, and it gave meaning to it for me, and it's beautiful. So and then you found me by seeing the video, seeing that. So I hope to see you again, Light Soul. And yeah, much love from Australia. And, you know, I'll probably end the stream myself now. It was really good. I love talking about this stuff. I like trying to be, you know, I've sometimes when things are difficult, I'll talk about difficult stuff, and this really is sort of difficult stuff. And I do bring it back to, you know, practical things. And yeah, anyway, it's been really awesome. I'm glad I did this stream tonight. You know, I'm glad I felt, you know, like I want to get back to that. When I feel like speaking and talking about something, I'll just, you know, I'll do it. I'll speak. I think that really helps. It helps me so much. And I appreciate you all. Much love, and we'll catch up soon.